Can I use this one? Is that okay? All right, so I brought my Mac. Yeah, oh, fantastic, works. All right, first I'd like to start by giving the hand to Arvind and Venki and all the organizers of this forum. I think they've done a fantastic job, so I'd like to thank them for inviting me and organizing everything. It's been really good. So now, I know we're very short on time. It's been 2 very intense days, so it's going to go really fast. I'm going to try to stick to the time I have. And I want to share some ideas about how we work, who we are, what kind of projects we work with, what are the problems. I think a lot of them have been mentioned already, and how to enter for India the age of global hardware startups. All right, let's see. Boom. So that's me, Benjamin Joffe, a partner at HAX. If we don't have enough time for questions, feel free to tweet or send me an email, ben@hax.co, Benjamin Joffe on Twitter. I've been in Asia since 2000, mostly East Asia, Japan, China, Korea, and recently a bit Hong Kong. I'm an angel investor. I've done a lot of events and research and contributed to TechCrunch and Forbes in addition to working with HAX. The dream of HAX is really, as was mentioned, is that hardware doesn't have to be hard. There's better ways to do it. On top of that, hardware doesn't have to be lonely. If you have a right support system that has been mentioned earlier, you can actually perform better. And last is that hardware can really change the world. So there's just so much you can do with software, whereas with hardware, what you can have is an impact on the physical world, on the human body, and that's something that apps can't do, and hardware can. But there's barriers to success. Some of them have been mentioned. So the first one is confidence. I think that's really one that can be worked on at the grassroots level by meeting entrepreneurs who have already completed some of the first steps toward the market, already have products on market. So not necessarily people with gray hair, but people who have recent experience who show you how they've done it. Second barrier is prototyping. Finding the right resources to prototype. Some of those resources are developed here in accelerators and fab labs and maker spaces. This is really important to have. That's the first step. HAX typically starts after the proof of concept to help with productizing, making sure of the demand, scaling. And if you do everything right like this, well, you win. And as you can see, there's a lot of barriers. Another barrier is thinking whether locally or globally. And that's really about figuring out what are the best resources you can find to create your company. And that also means that it could separate functions. You could have R&D in one place, prototyping and production in another, and sales in the third place. And that's very well understood for software, but for hardware, it's like something to understand as well. So quickly about HAX, so we're the largest hardware accelerator in the world today. We're also the largest, most active actually hardware seed fund. We're based in Shenzhen and San Francisco. We're part of a fund called SOSV, which is a $250 million global fund, and the third most active seed investor globally. We've done actually about 200 global investments, half of them based in US, 20% Europe, Asia 30%, and in India we did our first 2 investments this year. We look forward to working with all our partners to actually next year go from 2 to maybe 10 investments, which would be probably about 10% of our portfolio of new investments next year. That would be actually an enormous jump. So counting on you, right? On all of you. So what do we do at HAX? So we have 2 branches. The first one is focused on going from prototype to product, prototype to launch. That's the accelerator program. It's about 4 months, $100,000 investment for 9% equity. Second one in San Francisco is for scaling. Once you already have a product, 42 days boot camp to understand how to work with distributors, retailers, do sales and marketing. It's really important for scaling. Essentially, those 2 programs help you go from 0 to 1 and from 1 to N. So why Shenzhen? Well, if you've seen that documentary about Wired called Shenzhen, the Silicon Valley of Hardware, for free on YouTube, you probably know already. Shenzhen is the place where the world makes electronics. That's why we're based there. And the categories we focus on are those 5. Lifestyle products, consumer type, health tech, robotics, infra and IoT, and fabrication tools. Here are some companies already on great trajectories. We've been around for just a bit more than 4 years, and those companies already have valuations between 10 and up to 100 million. We think they can, grow even more. I'll just give you a few examples. Half of our portfolio is B2C. We use crowdfunding a lot to launch them. It's very efficient, and we've had great success with Kickstarter. Give a few examples so that you get to understand what I'm talking about in terms of projects. This is, for example, one consumer device. It's basically earphones that customize to your ear in 1 minute. And it does it using special material, and then you can trigger from your phone the hardening process, and then it sets perfectly and comfortably to your ear. This one is a cocktail machine, like an espresso for cocktail, using natural ingredient capsules that go into this machine, and you can mix with alcohol. They just received investment from Centauri. So if you've seen the movie Lost in Translation, maybe you know the company, or if you're a whiskey amateur. This one is a health tech device that puts you to sleep in 10 minutes. So that can save you like a full day of conference, instead you can go use this device to sleep. This one is a device that helps you test your blood. They're targeted to test up to 50 different blood markers with 1 drop of blood. And it's a very affordable device for health tech. This is some of our robotics project. This one's delivery robot. You can see go around, great for groceries. This one is a robot for supermarket inventory. It automates in-store inventory using computer vision. So it can basically do a full inventory in 30 minutes instead of 30 hours with like pen and paper. So those are really interesting robotics projects. This one is interesting for IoT because it's a new platform. Basically, for just $9, you have very advanced computer for a very low cost. So it can do lots of things and can create lots of IoT projects. And finally, to give an example of fabrication tool, this one is a desktop water jet cutter. So it cuts everything. And here are some of the things it can cut. So this one is a steel plate. This is titanium. Next is glass, so it cuts lots of things, carbon fiber, so you can see. Now, how do we work? So from the outside, it looks like every other makerspace. We have an office with a bunch of people on computers. We have a workshop. So what are the differences? Differences is really 4 assets, like China, content, curation, and community. To go into details, so China, I mentioned Shenzhen is a great asset. Why is that so? Because of speed. That's really the biggest asset of Shenzhen. A week in Shenzhen is like a month anywhere else. This company I showed you, this is what they achieved in about 4 months' time. They went from a compressor and a bucket to a great-looking product that they launched on Kickstarter and scored over $1 million. The assets beyond speed is this range of skills you can access there, manufacturing, prototyping skills, savings, and of course the scale from 1 to many. Content. Over the past 4 years, we built a curriculum to help our startups go from an early stage proof of concept all the way up to profit. And we have experts to cover all those bases. Curation, that's our selection. We have, this year we had about a couple thousand candidates, out of which we selected the top 5% for different programs. We look at strong competitive advantages in addition to team, market, and proof of concept. Community, that's the last key advantage, is having not only experts on staff, but also in our office about 100 founders, all tightly selected that can help each other because they don't compete with each other. And our alumni network is a global network. That's a huge advantage for founders. So to conclude, local or global, I think the idea is really to understand that world-class startups need world-class resources. So in India, we're partnering with the IoT Forum to source deals and cooperate with a lot of incubators and accelerators and other startups. And the idea is really just like India took over a good part of Silicon Valley starting 20 years ago and now, basically leading some of the world's biggest IT companies. I think it's important to understand that just like Silicon Valley has unique ecosystem, Shenzhen has it too. And working with Shenzhen and with Silicon Valley is the way to build global companies. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. I must also thank him because the first